All right, I am joined once again here on the Matthew Filipowicz Show by my good buddy Chris Faraone. Chris is an independent journalist. He is the author of the book 99 Nights with the 99%, as well as the upcoming book I Killed Andrew Breitbart. You can find him on Twitter at Faraone. Chris, thank you so much for being on the show again, buddy.
Always a pleasure.
All right, so Chris, most people know, if people listen to the show often, you are a Boston-based journalist. You were with the Boston Phoenix before, unfortunately, the Phoenix crashed and burnt out a couple months ago. But you just released an ebook called Heartbreak Hell, and people can find it at heartbreakhell.com, all about the week after the Boston Marathon attacks. And I just got to say, for starters, the ebook itself, that you can get it on Amazon, but it's also, the website itself is an ebook, and the design itself is actually really unique and cool looking. So tell us all about the ebook.
Yeah, I mean, so this is, well, I'll start by saying, I mean, I just saw you, and who the hell knew that I was going to be, promoting another book. Particularly one about such an extraordinary for this country at least experience. So, so the ebook is basically, I guess if we were to break it out into a PDF, it's maybe like 35 pages. It's about 10 chapters, and within those 10, there's a chapter for every day. Every day since the bombing. I was just a couple blocks away when the bombs went off on Marathon Monday. I was actually walking toward a restaurant called Forum, which is right where the second bomb was detonated. There was a party for a Boston Globe's online radio station in there. I was going to meet a couple of friends, and from the second that it went off, it was just this. Everything changed that second. You saw people crying, and then other people saw the reaction, and then I walked a block, and there were bloody bodies all over the place, and people being carted off. I mean, it was true mayhem, and the book is essentially that's where the book starts. From there, I kind of walked the streets of Boston through the mayhem, through the terror, and just through a lot of emotions over the following 6-7 days.
Yeah. Well, let's go through some. Let's start. You set the scene. You were going down. A lot of people, if people don't live here in Boston or haven't been here on the marathon week, the city is for the most part kind of shut down because of the marathon, and tons of people go, and it's pretty much a day where people start drinking at when they wake up, essentially. If you're not running in the marathon, a lot of people start drinking, and you were actually going to a party down there, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's party time. So it's I'm not even a big sports fan, but I think I've been to the marathon probably 5 times in my 10 years here. It's just, it's always fun, but it really is a mob scene. It really is and there are certain ways that you can usually walk that there's just no way you'd be able to. You either have to cross the marathon at a critical juncture, something like that. So I was basically navigating my way around Boston through the Common and through back streets that using my local knowledge to my advantage.
Yeah. Well, talk about some of your observations from that day. I mean, obviously, just how it devolved into chaos you mentioned, but after it went off, what are some of the things that you observed and experienced down there?
Well, I don't want, not just in the wild, liberal, progressive way that I talk about it in the book, but I mean, you notice the police presence, the fact that, we can have the conversation about whether it's a good, a bad, a great, an all right thing later, but the reality is that the unbelievable presence of not just police but military, and I called it alphabet soup. I mean, it's really ATF, FBI. We saw jackets with letters that I know people listening to your show are going to hit me up for what they are. I'll have to dig it up, but letter combinations that I've never even seen before on the backs of their jackets. It was unbelievable. Whoever knew there were so many tanks within driving distance? I mean, remarkable show of force. Immediately, and yeah, of course, it was the day of the marathon, and they do bomb sweeps and that kind of thing anyway. So there were already precautions in place. But you notice that, and then you also notice in the immediate seconds after, and this is something I really try to illustrate in the book. This wasn't anything close to 9/11, in that, especially in that, you didn't see or hear this for blocks. So I was a couple blocks away. I had my headphones in, so I'm not sure if I would have heard it. but it wasn't like this huge explosion unless you were right there. So what happens in the minutes and even half hour after is that, like, first only a couple of the people, you see some people screaming, crying, running, some have blood and on them, and then others don't. But but then there's people who are really just going about their day, and that's really weird when you see two distinctly different groups of people reacting. And then, of course, everyone kind of comes to their senses and realizes what's going on. And of course, cell phones didn't work in the minutes after the bombing. So I'm not sure of exactly why that happened. I'm sure that hopefully a tech writer will do a good story on that. But those are my initial reactions, and they're in there. And I think that everybody, from there, of course, the media descended on Boston. Much of the media was already here for the marathon.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and the media itself turned into like one of the biggest messes we possibly could have had, with just like the constant reporting and wrong reporting and inflammatory reporting about brown-skinned individuals, and it was a nightmare.
It's an inevitable nightmare in this day and age. And I have to say I'm pretty harsh on the media in the book, but I'm also kind of negotiating a lot of these things. So I'm harsh, but I think I'm fair in that. Things like whether we're talking about, social media or, the Reddit, the dash to find someone, a culprit on Reddit. I put all of this into the inevitable category and say, it's from what we take from, it's what we take from there that's important. It's what we, what do we see in all of this evidence that we actually report as reporters? For me, I was trying to report a lot of things that nobody was talking about. I figured if there were 10,000 reporters in town running in one direction, and I just looked in the other, sure, maybe I wasn't going to see the bomb threat at the courthouse, but you know what? I was sitting with people who were visiting town that week while they watched on television in fright. And I think these kinds of at a bar, I think these kinds of scenes and this wasn't the media's story. This was a story that the media was covering. And a lot of it turned into a story about the media and about their idiocy and about CNN reporters in Copley Square yesterday trying to get Boston strong cheers going. This is a lot of this. That's what a lot of this has turned into and has been from the start. But there are a lot of other stories out there, and I'm certainly not the only reporter reporting them. We've seen them from a number of outlets. But that's what this book ultimately is. It's the collection of vignettes and scenes from a Boston that was at once scared and curious, and then actually shut down for the most part.